So welcome back to my haunted library. It's Regina. I decided to do a commentary track on my unfinished web series, sci-fi web series called The Weirdness. Normally, I've done one of these before. I would do it with somebody else who was involved in the project and kind of bounce ideas and memories back and forth. But since we're in lockdown, quarantine still, it's just me. So maybe people who are interested in the creative process in general, or how to make independent film with like no money, might find this interesting. So here we go. So this first shot here, Chris Marston did the cinematography. He caught this beautiful butterfly floating around. So he kind of worked that into this opening scene, which is the character of Kate, played by Heather Cole, young actress who has a cool web series now called Crafting with Connie. So in this scene, she's in the park trying to psychically connect with her lost sister, Kathy. And we see images of Kathy played by Kat Miller. This is a shot in Tyler Park in Bucks County, where I've shot many films. It seems to be my go-to location for a beautiful country setting. And it really is a beautiful place. So now we have this flying object coming in. It's almost as if Kathy is controlling it. We see these tight close-ups. Kate gets hit in the head, and we go into the weirdness. Now, there is a scene that I cut where the guy whose frisbee it belongs to, I wanted to do this thing that was almost felt like a flying saucer, and then it turns out it's just a frisbee. And this guy, she meets this guy and they kind of go on a date. I had a whole thread for his character, and then the actor playing him moved to Chicago or something, so I cut that scene.
We had it as far back as I can remember.
So now we're in the therapist office with Dr. Stevens, Mary Stevens, played by Jo Twiss, who is a friend of mine. She's a local actress, professional actress. She's in a new HBO show called, oh my gosh, it's escaping me now. It's about the girl on the train. She has like a small recurring role in that.
It's a feeling.
And she's really good.
Intuition.
This was shot, and we used a wide-angle lens. I was trying to do kind of an idea of these old 70s
And if I focused,
films where they use that fisheye lens to show like a distortion or something psychically weird. The paintings are by an artist named Buddy Nestor, and I made this set in an abandoned room. This is what I'm talking about, independent filmmaking. There's a little room that I found in the warehouse where I have my studio.
I'm full of it.
La Regina Studios.
That Kathy and I
And
have special powers.
I don't even know if I asked
Am I right?
permission. Somehow I got the combination to the door, and I moved some furniture into this room, and I somehow got my husband to come in and help me hang the pictures up, and we put the drapes up and lay down the rug, and that's where we did the scene. Eventually, I think that set sat there for a while, and eventually that room was rented to another tenant, so I had to get the stuff out of there. What's great about shooting in my town is I've never had to get a permit for anything. If you try shooting an independent film in New York or LA or any big city, forget it. You'll get arrested. Not to say that we have not come close to being arrested.
Did you feel when Kathy came back?
It's better to apologize than to ask permission. I don't know if I really totally agree with that, but so here we are at the train station.
The pain?
Obviously, this is winter, and the first scene that we did was in the summer. So we shot this, I guess, months later. I'm not really sure the sequence that we did the scene. This is a little tunnel in my own town. I always like tunnels. I use them a couple times in this show because
Good.
I think they have kind of a sense of going into a different world.
Once she
This
came
is
back,
her
all that
retelling of a situation, which is
It was wonderful when she
to her
came back.
therapist. So it's
Our
going to
connection
be
was stronger than it
maybe
had
not
ever been.
exactly true or not factual, let's say. This scene is also in my living room, in not my house, but in my studio. Chuck Reece, who is a local lighting designer I work with at the theater in my town, a friend of mine, he lit this very beautifully.
I found this in thrift. Okay.
Oh,
And the
well,
girls they did a really good job with
Come
this.
on, here. How about that?
There's Kat Miller, really good actress. I've known her for a long time. Good friend of mine.
And it's just about time I do it again.
Oh, there's my Omni magazines. I collect Omni. So I wanted to kind of give this an 80s sci-fi feel to it on a limited budget. I really enjoy production design and costume design. Well, I do costume design professionally
Come on.
sometimes.
Magician.
That was too easy. That one I'm not.
I brought in a little bit of the
But
tarot,
this time, I'm going to scramble the signal.
the sense that this is something that they do kind of like a parlor game.
Wait, let's guess together. Ready? Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Death.
And we have the death card. Which, if you know the tarot, does not necessarily mean someone's going to die. It means the death of something or change, radical change. I really like the shot of the girls'
Sorry, I stayed away.
faces together. I think that they look a lot alike, which is why I cast them in these roles. And in fact, they just kind of inspired me to kind of create these roles rather than like casting them. When they're together, they don't look alike, but separately they do, if that makes sense.
It was Kathy's idea to go to the casino.
Okay, we totally guerrillaed this shot.
wanted
This
to
was
try
down
to
at the
replicate it, see if we could do it.
racetrack or the casino in Ben Salem.
Scared at first.
I loved those
Kathy
huge
convinced
video
us that
screens in the
easy.
background, so I wanted to get that
It
shot,
was.
and we totally guerrillaed it. In
Won
fact,
over
when we were
$3,000.
shooting, the
Then
security guy was driving up. It's pretty seamless. This is a completely different location. You wouldn't know it. This is a parking lot near where I live. And now we see the rats. That's actually my car, or my old car. The rat's car, that old red Cadillac, I found that in town and asked the owner, hey, can I rent your car? He was very cool about it. Here it's sort of like a David Lynch moment. You know, we couldn't really do a car chase safely anyway. So Chris did a really nice job making this montage to give the illusion or the sense that there's this chase going on, that the car is chasing them and she's kind of freaked out. So now
later that
I really
night,
like this shot. This is
Yes, what
very film noir.
Kate, are you with
This is
me?
again at my studio,
Yes.
the warehouse where I have my space that I
happened
work out of.
Men came back.
All of this was shot there. And again, I didn't have to ask permission.
3 men
This
from
one
the
I wish we
casino.
had had more light, you know.
I don't
that-
know who
that's
they
one of those
are or
things.
What they wanted.
It would have
I was
looked
afraid to
great
find out,
had
but
we
Kathy
been
seemed
able to light
recognize
it
them, but she wouldn't tell me
properly.
anything.
But when you're shooting outdoors, as that was, and you only have a few lights, you can only do so much.
She was terrified, paranoid.
This night we shot was
She began leaving
freezing,
the
and we had a
apartment in the middle of
fan
the night.
on Kat.
And
Again, I wanted to have more
Run
light
after
here.
her and try to get through
We
to
had a
her, but
fan
she
on
was-
Heather there.
She was.
They were
somewhere
troopers
else.
because it was like below zero. It was so cold. I like these
She
slow
was just
motion
gone.
stuff here. Again, this kind of dreamy sequence.
All she took with her was an overnight.
You know, from my channel,
That
you
was 6
probably
months.
have heard me talk about gothic romance and
haven't
how
heard
much
this.
I love the girls running away from the castle or the house with these flowy nightgowns. So you'll see that in this sequence here, the flowy nightgown. In fact, You'll see Batilda's black nightgown featured in one of the scenes. Kat was pretty sick here. I shouldn't have had her outside in the freezing cold, but she was a trooper. She is in a great horror film called Shadow Dead Riot with Tony Todd, a prison zombie movie that came out about, 15 years ago. Is it that much? Maybe 12 years ago? So now we're back in the therapist's office, and we switch to angles, which is also something that you see in these old films. We're again with the fisheye, but now we're in a different place. And those paintings really look nice with that. Lend themselves nicely to that. I have one of those paintings on some place in here. I kept one, and someone took the other one. The sound is not so great here, I have to say, because we didn't really have the mic placed. And that's another, in the optimal spot. And that's another thing when you're making independent film. Things like sound and lights become very important. And if you don't have it
I want you to
exactly right, it can be very frustrating.
Medication. I have a sample I can give you.
I made that prop, which you can kind of tell, the pill bottle.
What is nip?
So there's some elements of hokiness that I'm hoping add to the charm. I really love the sequence here with shooting under the umbrella. That's actually, it was actually my umbrella. I like that shot through the umbrella with the rain. And let's just recognize the great score that Mike Kiker did for this project. I was so lucky that I met him and that he was willing to do that. He's scored some other things since then. And he has a fantastic band called St. James and the Apostles, best band in Philly. Got to check him out. He's a very good musician, and he's a teacher at the School of Rock. So he's passing on his genius to young musicians. This location, I'm really inspired by these kind of almost like Rust Belt ruins around Bristol. We see Kathy here with kind of a random dude. His name's Chad Palmer. He was going to be more of a featured player, and then the story, when the project kind of ended, I didn't really get a chance to expand his character, so he seems a little random here. But I really like the sequence.
It's time to start
It's like, what is real? What's a memory?
You have everything you need to be calm, secure, and in control.
And then we go into this psychobabble, the kind of thing she would hear from her therapist, that now we hear the therapist is here listening to this tape, like one of these podcasts. And I don't mean to be putting it down, because I listen to those too. I just was trying to, I guess, be a little cheeky with it. That voice is done by my friend Jim Ludovici, who I think was a therapist in real life. Anyway, he does a really good job. And then this, again, we're back in that little room. I don't know if we shot this at night for real. Okay, here I'm trying to be very David Lynch. And it's a little dark on this box. You can't really see it too well, but this blue box, I kind of wanted to have a box like they have in Mulholland Drive, this blue box, and I actually found this on eBay. It's a famous designer did this makeup box. I paid a lot for it, I think, but it is a very cool box. And I like this shot here. Goes up and then it kind of just fades into our rats. These are the characters, I call them the rats. Kind of like they're the Rat Pack. We don't really know what they want, but they keep showing up. So the idea is that they dropped this box off at Dr. Stevens' office. I don't know if that really conveyed that there, though. I'm acknowledging some of the confusing things about this as I'm watching it now. We have our little CGI moment here. That's my voice calling it Cronex Corporation. And we've got this idea that, kind of getting a little sci-fi here, that she's opening up a file on Kathy Bain. That would be Kate's sister, who we keep seeing, the missing sister, the mysteriously missing sister. And she sees this classified document on her psychological profile. So there's the idea that Dr. Stevens was her doctor. And I have to say, Chris did a really great job on this editing sequence. It's really good. I wanted to kind of do this almost like a reference to The Shining, when Shelley Duvall and Wendy is looking at the pages that Jack has written. It has that low angle, and there's an increasing sense of horror. We're not sure why she's horrified, but in my plan, which I really didn't quite get to, we find out why Dr. Stevens feels so guilty about what she did. And later, you see that she experimented a new type of psychological experimentation on Kathy, and things did not go well. So now we see the rats in the elevator. This was shot in the freight elevator in the warehouse where I have my studio, and it is very scary to go in that thing. So I wanted to get that idea that they're kind of around. Now, why she would have her office where the freight elevator, I could see where that could be a little confusing. That would make a lot of sense. These three guys are all pros. They're all professional actors, and I was really lucky to have them. They're very cool. The one on the far right, Mark Colmer, I knew when I was a high school student, and he was dating my sister, and they were both involved in theater, so I've known him for a long time. Joey Perillo, guy in the middle with the white hair, has been in a lot of movies and television shows, as well as Philip has. So we've had a lot of, we're lucky to have a lot of these good actors that just happen to live around here. Again, here's another set I put together at the studio. I added that wallpaper and light fixtures and the furniture. So the idea is that the rats are watching something going on, some kind of strange happening, and it's going to get bright, so they're going to put their glasses on. They're anticipating it with a sort of evil glee. And we don't know what it is yet. Some nice music kicks in here. Mike did a really great job with all of this. All right, so we get into this next episode.
Hey, you okay?
There's Dr. Stevens. Ooh, who's he? That's Brad. He's the AI character. Of course, I don't give it away yet because that was going to be revealed later when he sort of like Ash in Alien. So, but I like this idea of this older woman having this like hot young guy in bed with her. Kind of funny. So his name's Brad. It stands for Bionic something. It's an acronym, and honestly, I can't remember without the script in front of me what I came up with. It's a very cool room. I wish my bedroom looked this nice. This is actually a bed and breakfast we stayed in. So again, when you're making an independent film, you have to think about locations, and it's not, even if it's, I mean, you can just make your own bedroom, but I wanted to show her living kind of like a wealthy, tasteful life. Like she had with this AI. Like she had gained something from her choice and what she did regarding Kathy and this mysterious Chronix Corporation. Kind of playing off an idea a little bit of like Coma, that movie Coma. So we have the box. It's bothering her. She's got to look in the box. And in the scene leading up to it, that little montage with the two girls, you'll notice that maybe you noticed that was Batilda's one of Batilda's black negligees. Okay, so
Jesus,
really great
Sorry,
acting
my love.
by Joe Twiss
Here's
there.
More milk with just a tad of brandy in it to help you sleep.
thank you.
The actor playing Brad is Patrick Alacarlo. He is a lawyer in real life who does some acting. He moved, I think, to LA while we were shooting this, and I couldn't do his scene where he gets beheaded and by the rats, and his head ends up in the refrigerator, and that's how we know that he is a robot. Although I certainly leave a lot of clues here. They did a really great job with the scene. They had good chemistry together.
Have you ever done something that you were deeply ashamed of? No. Of course you haven't.
That's good acting.
I'm ashamed
Joe
that I don't
Twiss
love you better.
does a lot of professional acting and on stage and screen. And I was really happy to that she agreed to do this.
Dishes.
Just leave until the morning.
I can tell when you want to be alone with your thoughts for a while.
So something's bothering her, her conscience, in it's being symbolized by that box and what it contains. So somebody knows, is sending her a message that they know what she did. All right, now we cut to a very shaky scene. I think we put the camera on my handlebars on my bike there, and Heather's riding my bicycle around town. And it kind of shows because it's a little jumpy, but whatever. There's a shot of my studio, the clock tower. This sequence worked pretty nice. Again, we're back in the summer. And Kate sees Kathy. And Kat is now wearing a wig that does not look very good because she cut her hair very short. And she started out with long red hair. And by the time we got to this, it was short. So, oh, I remember shooting this. That's actually me running. And those are my feet. Because we were missing just that kind of part that added to that chase scene. So my nephew Charlie and I went out and shot that with me in the costume running with the wig. This is what you do when you're making indie film. You're your own stand-in. This is a part of Bristol, and this is kind of creepy part of the woods on the other side of the swamp near the river, near the tide pool. That was part of an old industrial complex, so it still has this rusty feeling. There's a sense of danger back there that I feel when I go there, so I wanted to kind of capture that in this scene. So Kate thinks she sees Kathy, and she approaches her. Kat Miller is a dance. Well, both of these gals are dancers, and you can see in the way they move. Again, great music by Mike. So then Kathy turns into this other character played by Brandon Lord Ross. And Brandon is a musician and an artist. He and his wife have a band, progressive rock band called The Red Mask. He's actually in a television show on Oxygen playing Charles Manson. I think it's called Manson's Women or something. Anyway, check it out. Again, we're in another Bristol location. Here's a new character. This is Cortez, played by Keenan McCartney. And Cortez is Kate's best friend.
So
you kind of see he's giving us a little more information about Kate and her maybe delusions about Kathy, about whether she really sees Kathy, her obsession with Kathy in a way. And he's concerned about her. These two also had great chemistry.
Really messing with your head. I mean,
We shot this outdoors, obviously, in this beautiful park in Bristol, and it was very hot, I recall, and muggy,
Give me some drugs.
and
anything good?
you know,
Can I have one?
you're dealing with, you don't have a crew, you don't have anyone doing hair and makeup. It kind of shows a bit in this scene, I think. I do like her costume. I went to some one of these really cheap stores and bought this like sporty outfit. I was trying to give an idea of this kind of, like her clothes are just a little off. And if you could see her shoes, there is one shot of her shoes when Kat knocks her down. It's really hilarious because I got those shoes too for like $1. But the idea that she would put on this like sports outfit to go bike riding, I thought was kind of funny.
And often do create an altered state of consciousness.
Keenan's very funny in this scene.
Why
Bringing a little bit of levity to this production. I like the idea of kind of having some elements of comedy in,
Do you want my advice?
or campiness. I have said before on my channel, I'm a big fan of camp. So if this comes off campy, it's fine with me. I wasn't trying to be campy, but I'm open to being campy, if that makes sense. Having a good laugh, I think, is good. This is a shot that I just kind of stole from like a TV movie of the week from the 70s. They would do these long shots through a fountain. I think it works pretty nicely. I like doing like moving within the same location, continuing the scene, but with different camera setups. So at first they were at the gazebo, then they walked, and now they're on the bench. I think it adds interest to a long scene. So you're not just going back and forth, cutting back and forth between two people sitting down, or you can keep the location, but just change things around a bit.
Bartholomew Bathory?
Yeah.
You're crazy. Like, I was so full of shit. And anyway, you don't want to be messing around with that stuff.
Why not?
Because it's dangerous. That's why not.
Now we're going for a tighter angle. All of this stuff is, the language of filmmaking. I'm not saying it's that sophisticated, but I do try to incorporate some things like that in, when I'm making a film. I think about this. And I do storyboard a lot of this out. I don't think I storyboarded this, but I will do, before I shoot a sequence, often, not only do I visit the location, but I will, take photographs, of course, but also sketching. Sketching helps me to think about what I want.
I'm not making any promises.
I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
Now we're back in the studio. This was shot probably 6 months later, although it's supposed to be the same night. And for a minute I thought we had gotten the black guy on the wrong side, but she's looking in a mirror. And there's Kathy. She always is around on some level. This is shot in my studio, which is now like my sewing room. Chuck Reece did a great job with the lights going outside. This was a freezing cold night. And Kat, who was supposed to show up to play Kathy in this scene, couldn't get there because there was freezing rain and she didn't want to drive. So the show must go on. We still shot. We had lights outside those windows on the one story down that were getting pummeled with freezing rain. I have to give Chuck a lot of credit for that. I dressed this myself. We've had some nice light coming in. This is all artificial light. And then we go into what I really like, a dream sequence. Change the angle a bit, distort things somewhat. And there I am running again. I don't look too bad. I'm not as thin as Kat, but I try to pull it off there. Here's Brandon again. Again, another tunnel. This is a very cool tunnel that very little traffic goes through, so we're able to guerrilla this shot pretty well, and people just basically left us alone. But look at the way the light comes through that tunnel. That's all natural, and Chris really made the best of it with his editing. Here we have Kathy and Kate kind of mingle. And I kind of use Kat's tattoo here. This is actually her tattoo to reference the tattoo that Heather was talking about, or Kate was talking about. Kat looks really beautiful here. She's very good at just conveying interest and emotion and something going on just with the look. I don't think she even knew what the hell I was talking about, but we have a very good working relationship where I would be like, okay, just give me like a weird look, and she would make that happen. We green screened this part of it. Doesn't look bad.
Who are they? They work for Chronix.
So the idea is they work for Chronix, these men, the rats who have been following her. And there's Brandon again playing this drug dealer. Again, we're down on a different part of Bristol, near Bristol, near Tullytown, where it's a very industrial section. I love this shot here. I'm like, oh, Kat, can you stand out on this, I don't know, rock or something and pretend like you're floating on, like walking on water? Sure, okay. She went out and did it, and I know her feet were freezing. And here is, again, a shot of Kathy looking pretty rough. We saw her down before at the river with Chad, looking rough. She's looking even rougher here. She's doing drugs. Something's going on. And now she is, with the darker wig, kind of coming at us. And that is actually me in that bed. Because Kat couldn't be there, I'm like, oh, the hell with it. I'll put on the wig and the costume, and I got in the bed. And this was going to cut to this really scary, like, rubber head that I have. But I think Chris talked me out of it. I still think it could have worked.
It worked.
But it did push it into, like, camp. But, what's wrong with that? Got some green light coming through. And Mike's got some cool music happening here. And this would have been like the credit sequence for each of these episodes. The 3 episodes had like sort of this outro credit sequence. I love that shot of Mark. It's so good. And that car was very cool. It belonged to this guy who owned a bar in this town. And that smoke coming out is it's supposed to be the exhaust, but we did pump some smoke into it. Wow, we're coming into the third part. If you're with me so far, God bless you. I hope that, it's interesting to hear the process on some level about how these things are done. And if any of you guys are interested in making a film, let me know in the comments below. I could give you some advice. And what to do, what not to do. All right, so where are we now? Okay, so here we have more information about Mary Stevens. She is at a cocktail party. It's pretty obvious we green screen this. There's Brad. This is the first time she meets Brad. She's being very girlish. There's this idea that she was given Brad as a present. He is her robot lover. And I truly believe we are moving into that in the future. The idea that instead of having to put up with a partner and all the problems we have getting along with each other and dealing with our sexual needs and wants and desires, that we're just going to have like a programmed robot to take care of that. That's my opinion. I'm not saying it's going to be a good thing. I shot this sequence myself. Kat showed up and we turned off all the lights and shot this little dance sequence. Heather and Kat are both dancers, so I wanted to use that in this. They share this talent. The music's very nice here. I have a friend who owns a dance studio, so I used their location. So all of these different threads, these narrative threads that I have set up in these three, especially in this third episode, but throughout, were going to pan out as this project grew. And, you know, guys, maybe I will finish it. I'm getting inspired watching it. I kind of miss doing it. This is Keenan again in our local coffee shop. That's Brandon and Lynette as extras in the background. They have a band called the Red Mask. That's really cool.
You know, I hooked up with that David Beckham lookalike for my gym.
I thought he was straight.
In my dream, This morning I gave him a knowing look. It was fun.
I bet.
And I like Keenan's character, Cortez, because he's adding some levity comedy to this very serious character of Kate. And she's flashing. It's a nice shot by Chris. Now we get into... So this character's name is Reed Thin, and he's played by Alexander Findgrudt, who is a lovely young man that I met when I was taking a filmmaking course at the community college.
Before.
And he's a filmmaker. He does these amazing psychedelic films, and he has a very cool Instagram channel called Psychedelic Aesthetic. I will link it below. It's definitely worth checking out. And he does very cool experimental films using old like 16 millimeter and old film stock. And he has a very cool collection of authentic 70s and 60s vintage clothes, and he's wearing one of his outfits there. And I just love his style. We shot this at his house in Philly, and we were lucky to have this location. And he was another character that I had a whole part planned for. He was going to be revealed as something of like a Satanist and get into some occult stuff. I mean, I was all ready to go with it. All right, now we have another flashback of showing Kathy at the ballet bar, trying to exercise, trying to work out to get into a dance company. And we see a different side of her personality. And Kat's very good at playing this. Definitely the dominant personality here, and shown very dramatically with this scene. I'm happy with this scene, you know, what we were able to do with just a few lights. If you use your imagination, you can pull some stuff off. I really like that shot with the shadow. And Kat's a very good dancer. We could have had a little more light going, but, you know, it works, I think. And then this very dramatic scene with... I remember Kat laughing at the campiness of this, but she just commits to it. It looks like her wig might have been shifted a bit. And, you know, you got to do the dramatic long shot. And then we go back to this little sequence. I really like Kat's work here. Both of the girls did a great job.
Not until she came back. And the rest, you know.
That's an interesting story.
It's like what I was saying before about continuing a scene, but now we're in a different location within the same location. Instead of cutting back to them sitting on the couch, the idea is that they continue to talk and move their way into the kitchen. For me, that adds a little interest to the scene, so we're not just back in the same place we were.
They're two different names.
Are they?
Of course.
And this house, this is a townhouse in Philly, it was very cool, and it had a pool on the roof that I wanted to shoot at some point. But back in the coffee shop, we have Heather and Keenan, and she's telling him they're going to go through with this ceremony to try to reconnect with Kathy. So I did have this whole thing planned about how we were going to pull this off. I should just stop talking about it and just shoot it in one weekend, try to get as many people together as I can and do something really crazy and just cut it in and see if it works. I mean, why not? As it is now, there's so many unanswered questions and threads that are just hanging that I think if I added more, it wouldn't really make much of a difference.
Have you forgotten the shitty
I think it would take me probably another 2 hours worth of content to wrap up things the way I kind of had it planned. But you don't know. It could happen. I like Keenan's work here. He's just over her. So there's this idea maybe now put out there, what does he know about Kathy and Kate? And when Reed Thin confronts her that Kathy and Kate have the same name, is she the same person? These are the questions that you could be asking. Is she a split personality? Does she have an imaginary sister? Or is Kathy real? I had all this worked out. In fact, I was going to end the weirdness with the robot version of Kathy wandering through Times Square at night. And now with this COVID shutdown, this would be a perfect time to shoot it, but I don't know. And maybe I'm not that ambitious or that crazy.
I'll hold on to them for you.
Gotta go. See you at the ceremony.
Bye.
So now we see Cortez calling Dr. Stevens. So he has her on speed dial. He knows something about what's going on. Kate is heading for some kind of breakdown. This sequence probably is the one that is probably the cheesiest, just in that I couldn't quite get what I wanted to happen here to work, but I'm sort of conveying the information. She's doing research about Dr. Stevens. She got in all kinds of trouble with Cronax. She got sued, and then she was exonerated. I don't know if this information is coming through. And then her laptop explodes. Chris, I have to tell you, he did a great job making that happen. Now we go into a sequence that I actually did this camera work for. I used this for my film class that I took at the community college. That's Sean Singh. He was a real sport to play the nurse here. I shot this with the Blackmagic, and you can kind of see it has a different quality than the other camera, which was my Canon. I like the Blackmagic. I think it looks really good. Oh, I love that. Chuck did a great job with the lighting. I did that effect on her forehead through my After Effects class. A little rough, but whatever. And here we're just using some things you pick up at Spencer's Gifts to do this sci-fi that is kind of a lot like Dark, I have to say, the show Dark, with the eyes burning out. Totally unplanned. I'm back in what is my screening room at my studio. And we have the rats. Kathy is now with the rats. So we have this connection with something that Dr. Stevens did with Kathy and the rats. And it all has to do with Cronax and this hallucinogenic drug that I was going to introduce. And then there was going to be a cult around this drug. And this the bionics that you see here, that Cronax, they were making robots as well as pharmaceuticals. And since she lost her eye, they're going to replace her eye with an Oculi 3000, a bionic eye. So I bought this little eye on eBay and turned it into this prop with the wires and things. And I think we did a pretty good job with this. I like how the point of view changes. So we see the eye, and then when Mark hits the little clicker thing, which I wish we had done a close-up of because that is very cool. Then she sees through the eye. I really like that shot there. So it's an idea of like changing point of view, moving the camera around, using your imagination to come up with problem-solving stuff. So, if you don't have a lot of money and you don't have much of a crew, you fill in where you can by using your imagination. So now we're back to our blue box. You might recognize that light from my haunted library. And the idea is that kind of gets swallowed by the box. Now Kathy is now signing off, whatever that is, to join Cronex. And we had this little joke at the end. And that's all we got. So that was where it ends, but it's certainly not where the story ends as far as I'm concerned. And now that I'm watching this and looking at this again, I put this away and I really kind of not forgot about it, but I just put it on the shelf and just said, okay, I'm not ready to look at this for another couple years or whatever. Now that I'm looking at it again, it's, when you're making a film, it's very intense, and when you don't get things right and you don't get the money that you need, or the crew or the actor, and someone calls in at the last minute and they can't make it for whatever reason, you get very frustrated. So I think part of my frustration was keeping me away from revisiting this project, but now that I'm looking at it with a lot of distance, I really am very proud of it, and of all the people that got involved, that they were willing to do that. It's pretty amazing. So who knows, maybe I will resurrect this project. It could happen, and maybe I'll do a fundraiser or something. But anyway, that is the weirdness and my commentary. I will try to link below the cast and crew members who are involved, and you can check out their work. And if you've made it this far, thanks for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye.